Hi there. Thank you for joining us for Hobbies, Crafts, and Collectibles. I'm your host, Duska Cornwell. Today we're going to be talking to two very special people. First of all, we'll be talking to Jim Erdmann. He's an Eastern Illinois University alum who has an extensive collection of EIU sports memorabilia. I think you'll want to see it. We'll also be talking to Betty McClurg. She's from Urbana, a master quilter. We're going to show you some of her beautiful work. Don't miss it. Stay with us. With me today is Betty McClurg from Urbana, Illinois, and I'm thrilled to have you here, Betty. Just talking with her beforehand, you're such a delight. And she has a hobby that I know many people love and hold dear, quilting. And
Yes.
You've been doing this for...
Since 1983.
Wonderful. Well, what got you started in quilting? Was this a family thing, or?
Not exactly. I decided when I retired that the one thing I was going to do was to quilt, or learn how to quilt. And so I looked up a lady that I had known for some years, and she quilted at the First Methodist Church in downtown Champaign. And I went over, and so I've ended up quilting 2 mornings a week for nearly 20 years.
Wonderful. Now, is this something you do by hand? Do you use a machine?
Both. Some of the things are put together by machine. Here is one example that this border is put on by machine. And in fact, this whole one was quilted on the machine, whereas the rest of them are all quilted by hand.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, I can see the hand stitching, especially with the embroidery. Wonderful. Now, if I remember right, this one here is the one that, probably one of your earliest ones?
Is the first one that I made, yes.
Did you have a special motivation for doing this quilt?
A grandson, a couple of years old, the first grandson.
Wonderful.
And I used some of the patterns from little kids' quilting or coloring books. And that's where I got my patterns.
Where do you get your fabrics?
Oh, well, you start out buying fabric, and by the time you've quilted as long as I have, you have a stash, which is a 5-drawer chest that's crammed full.
Have you devoted a special room to quilting that you can kind of just take over, or do you have to?
No, at home, I take over part of the dining room when I get the quilts set up, ready to quilt. But now something as big as this, I don't do that. But I take it to the church where I quilt, and the girls quilt it. And of course, then I pay them for it. So.
How many women are in your sewing circle?
We started out with about 12 or 13, but we have died. Unfortunately, they have gotten older, and we have only 6 left now.
I see.
Sometimes 7, but 6 most of the time. And with the money that we earn, we buy music for the church, for extra music that they'd like to have. And then we give money to the Girl Scouts, we give money to the Boy Scouts, and then, you know, being a church group, there's a group that always goes to Appalachia at least every year, if not every other year, and we invariably give them several $100s to do that, to help them on that. So
very wonderful.
we have a good cause.
Yes. Now, I know very little about quilting. I am not a real great sewer. Sometimes my buttons stay on when I sew them on, but not all the time. But I know that the pattern of the quilt tells a lot about the
quilt.
history, and it tells a lot about the value. What is this pattern?
This pattern is Drunkard's Path, and it makes a difference as to how you put the blocks together as to what you come up with. And if you'll notice that some of the blocks are one color, and then they're another way.
Yes, I love that pattern. Now this
That,
This is interesting. Now these I know. These are yo-yos, right?
those are yo-yos. Yes, those are yo-yos. And this is where I got the idea to make that one, was from this picture I found.
So you do get some of your inspiration from quilting magazines or?
Yes, and pictures that I find and I think, oh, this would look real neat, so I go ahead and draw them and go ahead and make them.
Now I know today you brought a very special book of inspiration with you. Tell us about this wonderful, it's a book of quilts published by the Farmer's Wife, and what's the date on that?
1931. It was my grandmother's.
Oh, wonderful. And did she quilt?
I don't remember that the lady ever did, but there's a quilt pattern in the back here that they took a picture to scan it here. This one.
Oh, yes.
A wedding ring,
We'll
and
be
I
showing
made
that
that
on our
one.
screen.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. That's
That-
one of the patterns I would recognize. That's a
Yeah.
pretty popular pattern with
Yeah,
people.
yeah, it is.
Well, that is wonderful. And I would
Yeah.
just want to show, I don't want to run out of time before we get to show some of my
Oh.
favorites that you brought.
Okay.
I love this. And once again, you've,
With the 4th of July coming up, this is
Yes.
very,
yes,
yeah.
this is beautiful. And you've got your inspiration picture, but what I
Yes.
love about it is you don't do it exactly like the picture. You kind of do your own thing a little bit,
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
yours.
Yes.
That's a wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful example. And then this is my favorite that you've brought. I love this. Well, first the colors, but what's
Yeah.
not to love, right?
Yeah.
What gave you this idea?
Well, you have to dig a little further and find the cats.
Oh, yes, that's right. We have
Cats.
a cat. Okay, which one is it? Is it
The
this
bottom one there.
Yes. Okay. This is special
Yeah.
too. I love the smiles on these cats.
And there's
Here
a
we go.
pattern.
I see. So there's
That
your
I made,
pattern, your
yeah.
inspiration. This one's a little bit patriotic as well. It's a
With red, white, and blue, yeah. Well, I made the
Wonderful.
cats, and I made several cats. Made a couple out of pastels, and my granddaughter wanted one for her mother, and so I asked her what color she wanted, and she wanted turquoise and brown, which are not, that material is not easy to find.
Sure.
Anyway, we found it and made that, and then after we made all these cats, my son said to me, well, Mom, how about making some dogs? So I folded it down, and so therefore I said, well, now I don't have any dogs, so I asked my daughter to draw me 6 dogs. So she did.
Wonderful. Oh, she did a great job.
Yeah, so she drew the dogs, and I went ahead and made them.
Now, I think what I love best about it is that they all have a little bling.
Have a little what?
A little bling. That's what we call the jewelry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're just adorable.
Yeah.
Let's show another example. Now you have kind of a Christmas theme going on
Yeah,
here. I wanna
there's
show
a
this
Christmas one.
one. This is precious.
Yeah.
There you go.
And again, I saw the angels someplace, little, and drew them, and then went ahead and make it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now,
And quilted it.
yes. Do you find that you make a lot of gifts for family for
Oh,
the
yeah.
holidays?
Yeah.
And,
Jana took a picture of four girls each with a quilt. We had after Thanksgiving dinner one day, or one Thanksgiving, I said we're going to have show and tell. So we went to the living room and I showed all these quilts, and then I said to the 4 girls, "Now take your pick." So they did. So
wonderful.
Jana has that picture. Yeah.
Okay, we'll be sure to show that to
Yeah.
our audience.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So do you have any major projects that you want to do you haven't been able to do yet? Any patterns or things in the works?
Not necessarily.
You'll know it when you see it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I have nothing going right now, and I just finished just finished the dogs, and I'll go ahead and start in thinking about what I want to do next. I really need to use up my stash. I really do, you know.
Well, wonderful.
And then here's another Christmas one.
Oh,
And
oh,
that,
poinsettias, that's
yeah,
beautiful.
and there's the idea underneath it there. There,
Oh, right here.
yeah.
Wonderful. You do such a wonderful job bringing these to life. And Betty, you've been such a joy to have with us on our first show.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming all this way. And
Well-
I know our viewers have enjoyed seeing your work, and I hope to see
Okay.
more in the future.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Welcome back. I am so glad to introduce to you Jim Erdmann. He is an Eastern Illinois University alum and an extensive collector of EIU sports memorabilia. Jim, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
So, how long have you been collecting sports memorabilia?
Basically, when we came back to Charleston, which would have been 1986, I guess I started on it.
Okay, now you're an alum. What year did you graduate?
59 and then 61. I served 1 year as a grad assistant, one of the first ones in the physical education department.
I see. So, were you involved in athletics when you were here?
Played a little bit of football, no star by any means, but went out and went through the grind that you have to go through.
I understand. So, what was it about EIU memorabilia that made you want to collect it?
Basically, I had some free time when we come back and didn't have anything else to do, and happened to run on to an opportunity to pick up some of it, and that one thing led to another. Started out basically with programs and things of that nature. Finally, I ran out of as many of them as I could find, and I ended up going to the sports cards of anyone that went on into the pros. After that, I couldn't get a hold of any more. I ended up, I shouldn't say any more because there are more out there. Finally ended up getting balls signed by anyone that went on into the pros. And it didn't have to be the NFL or NBA or anything, it's just as long as they went onto a pro team, a minor league team or anyone of that nature. Got paid for it.
I see. And you're still involved with EIU athletics. Tell our
run
audience.
the 25-second clock for football and the shot clock for men and women's basketball, help out the golf tournaments. Been on the Panther Club board of directors for a number of years, and so yeah, I've been involved. Stick my nose in probably where it shouldn't be, but I get in there.
I can tell you're a guy that just can't sit still, aren't you?
Somewhat. Yeah.
Well, let's look at some of your collection. First of all, is there a piece that you've brought today that you would say would be one of your favorites?
Not really, because they're really all favorites. I mean, I guess it's the thrill of the hunt that you're looking for something from Eastern on that part, and whatever one you find at that time, that's your favorite
That's
one.
your favorite.
But the next day you find a different one, so that one's no longer favorite, and you've got a different one. I think I like a couple of them that I've got at home. A 1908 athletic oratorical program, 1930 homecoming program, being some of the older ones. Some of the pictures, as you can see, one of them laying there.
I love this photo. This is wonderful. This is 1916.
1916.
What can you tell me about the photo?
The only thing I can tell you is that the names of the gentlemen are on the back of it, because I wouldn't know who they were otherwise. It's one that I happen to be privy to come across, and I'm not even completely sure where I got that one, but I've got probably 30 or 40 old ones dating back into the teens and early 20s of that nature.
Wow. Now, you were telling me earlier about a project that you've kind of taken on recently, trying to catalog the names of all of the athletic.
Well, about 20 years ago, I started a project that I'll never finish, and we'll never get it up to date on that part. I started out trying to identify all the athletes that attended Eastern and the years they were here in the sports that they were in, because there was no record of that in athletics at that particular time. Of course, in the recent years, they have records of everything of that nature, but I was going back getting the guys, and so I've gotten almost everyone from day one up to 1960. categorized as to. So if someone mentions, did Joe Smith play here, I can go into the S's and find Joe Smith and say, yeah, he played football or basketball or whatever it was in that time.
Wonderful. That will be a treasure, I'm sure.
Well, I occasionally get a call from athletics to say, you know, do you know this person or, on that part?
Well, you've got some Charleston boys here. Why don't you tell us about a couple of these items?
Well, a couple of them here. One is Jeff Gossett, who played, 12 years, I guess, in the NFL. He was a punter for the Oakland Raiders, and he, of course, was a Charleston boy. He did play some pro baseball, and but finally ended up in football. I think the one unique thing about Jeff that he was here on the 77 football team, missed the 78 team, which was a national championship year, and because he went to play baseball, and then he came back for 79 season. So he missed out on the big year that they played. But he went on that part. This one here, of course, was a spring training program of Marty Patton's, who being here in Charleston, you still see Marty's. Used to be the old Waltz as we knew it when I was going to school, but Marty's is what's called now. And so anything that pertains to that individual, like I said, I've got a program in 1973 from Marty in which he actually pitched for the Red Sox. So anything that pertains to that person on into the pros, I go after.
I see. Now, I'm not much of a sports enthusiast. My husband, he should be here talking to you because he would love to hear all the history. But just as an artist, I love the old programs and the graphics on them. We just don't do them like that anymore. Those are really, really neat. I was at your home earlier and saw a wall of footballs. How many footballs do you think you've collected?
I've probably got, I'm going to say 30 to 35 different ones now.
Wow,
and
they're all
guys that have gone on
signed?
into either the Arena League or the NFL or Canadian Football League or any league on that part as a pro.
Now, would this have been an actual game ball? It's so clean.
No, that's one that I had Sean sign, Sean Payton sign at the gala that Barbara Burke put on down at Effingham last year.
I see.
Or 2 years ago when he was back. So anytime someone comes back to campus, I try to get the signature on them. Every person has got his own ball. I don't believe in having a lot of them on the same on the same football, basketball, or baseball.
I see.
Baseball-wise, I've probably got 28 to 30 different ones there. And
basketballs?
Basketball, I got 3 or 4 on that part. And I don't leave the women out. I even got one, Rachel Galligan played some basketball over in overseas, and so I managed to get a ball signed by her, and then it goes back to basketball, Kevin Duckworth, Tomcat Simpless, some of those people that have been famous in Eastern athletics.
Right, and that's what I loved about your displays. It's not just football, basketball, the well-known sports, but we've had gymnastics programs at EIU. You
Right.
have, in fact, we have one of our photos on the back wall.
Yeah,
Rugby.
That there's a 1972 program, and the first 3 place winners there in those national championships were all Eastern athletes.
I see.
But of course, gymnastics was dropped a few years after that, and as other sports have been in the past. You mentioned rugby. I have the ball signed by the rugby team that first NCAA Division I rugby program. So I have a ball signed by all those on that team. So yes.
Wonderful. Now this is a very unique item. You've not found another like this.
Haven't found one like it, and I haven't found anyone that can tell me about it. It's a bank that was a 1978 national champion, NCAA 2 national championship. It's got the Eastern logo on the back of it. It came out of an estate on the south side of Chicago, which I happened to pick up through eBay. The person I bought it of has no idea where it came from or how it got there. I've talked to probably 25 or 30 of the players on that team. Not a one of them can tell me anything about it. So it must have been a local bank that was someone close by, either an Eastern alum or someone on the team that was in the area, and so they put out some banks for it. But I haven't talked to anyone that knows where or who.
Well, this one's a rare one. What would you say maybe is your favorite possession that you have? Do you have one that you were just so stoked when you found it?
Well, I don't know necessarily on that, but one that's interesting, I've got a coin that was a 1921 track coin that took place. It was Eastern Illinois Teachers College at that time, and it was a gentleman that lived down in Robinson that won it. He was not an Eastern grad. I was able to trace that much information down. Called the library down there to get information, but they couldn't give me any more history in regards to his family at the present time. But something like that's interesting, and I got that in an old antique shop over in Terre Haute that someone says was there, and I took off and went to get it.
So now you've mentioned eBay, antique shops. Where are some of your, well, you don't have to divulge the honey spot, but is that where you mostly find your items?
Most of the stuff nowadays, you have to go to those places. Oh, I hit the garage sales or anyone that I know. Some of the guys I have coffee with and things in the mornings, they've got programs at home that they're cleaning out a drawer and they'll find and they'll bring it over. And so, yeah, just a little bit of everywhere.
Wonderful.
I don't pass up any opportunities.
Well, you've told us a little bit about some athletes. Here's some famous faces, some coaches. What can you tell us about these three gentlemen?
Well, those three are all Eastern alum, and they're all head NFL coaches, or at least they were. Childress is out at the present time, but of course the other two, Shanahan and Payton, have both been national champions, and that you can't say much more. Eastern's the cradle of NFL coaches on that part. And of course, along with that, we had Kenny Baker, who's a local boy that ended up being NFL official and worked the Super Bowl and things. So, who of course now has retired, but Eastern can say they were well represented in the NFL.
So Jim, since you attended school as a student, what kind of changes have taken place on campus?
Well, the campus itself ended where the parking lot is at now behind Ford and Hall, and no, not Ford Hall, the Triad on that part. Those were tennis courts at that time, and there was nothing south of there. The Union was a Quonset hut setting at that point. Lincoln and Douglas halls were there, but Stevenson was not there. Where the rec center is at now, and Lance and things, was an old cement block building that was our football locker room at that time. And baseball diamond set right up behind Lincoln and Douglas, where Stevenson's at in there now. And so there's been a lot of changes on that part. We didn't have near the number of students that are here now, and you pretty well knew most of the people that were on campus on that part, or at least had a chance to meet them. But physical changes, yeah, the ponds were still there, but there was the old trailer court where the guys coming back from the service lived and things of that nature. And so it's a lot of changes on that part.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, is there one item out there that you just haven't been able to find?
I've got a request from an individual, and again, I will not divulge any information on that, of wanting a program or a media guide or something of some individuals that went to school here way back in the teens, well, in fact, pre-teens. And I don't know if there is any information available on that. I know the names, I know what teams they played on, but I have not been able to find anything on it. And the family would like to have some information, you know, showing that they were athletes here, as well as being active in other aspects of the university.
Well, we'll definitely keep our eyes out for that one. If you're like most collectors, though, anything that you don't have, that's what you're looking for, right?
It's the thrill of the hunt.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I just want to thank you so much for joining us, Jim. Is there anything else you'd like for us to know about Eastern memorabilia, or what we can be?
If you find anything that you don't want anymore and you want to get rid of it, well, send it my way. I'm always open.
We know where to find you during game time, right?
My wife has told me that only one copy of everything, though. You can't have all the duplicates. You got to do away with those. But no, I've got a closet full of programs dating back from the 20s, you know, and I'll just take anything that comes along Eastern-wise, and then I'll make a decision of whether I should keep it or whether it needs to go to someone else on that part.
I understand. Now, you mentioned your wife. Does she collect something in particular? Is it pretty much equal balance in the home?
She used to, but now, as far as a particular collection, no. Her comment, though, to me is that I'm married to Eastern, and she's my second wife, you know, as a result of it.
Thanks for watching. See you again soon on Hobbies, Crafts, and Collectibles.